Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Stephanie and I appreciate y'all stopping by. Today I will be showing y'all how I made these 6 easy woodland themed Christmas decor pieces, and most of them can be used after Christmas as winter decor as well. I hope y'all enjoy the video, and if you do, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Let's go ahead and jump into the first DIY. For this first project, I used one of these 8x10 whitewash wood plaques from Walmart. All of the reindeer wood cutouts from this mini ornament pack from Walmart, some Rust-Oleum stain in the color Kona, and the names of Santa's reindeer that I cut out in matte black vinyl using my Cricut. I started by staining all 9 of the reindeer front and back with the Kona wood stain. Next, using an L-shaped ruler to keep the reindeer straight and somewhat evenly spaced, I placed one of each of the reindeer onto the wood plaque, facing them all in the same direction. Once I was happy with the placement of the reindeer, I took some hot glue and applied a small amount to the back side of each reindeer and attached them to the plaque. You could use wood glue or a stronger adhesive to attach the reindeer if you wanted for a stronger hold. After I had the first row of reindeer attached, I then moved the ruler down to the middle of the plaque and laid out the second row of reindeer. For this row, I reversed the order of the reindeer and had them all facing to the right. Again, once I was happy with the spacing and placement of the reindeer, I used hot glue to attach them to the plaque. Then, for the third and last row, I moved the ruler down to the bottom of the plaque and laid out the reindeer in the same order and facing the same way as the first row and hot glued them in place. Next, I took the vinyl reindeer names and laid one under each of the 9 reindeer and applied them to the plaque. I decided to lay out the reindeer names in the same order as they are in the song Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. I tried to get them spaced out as even as possible and as straight as possible, but because the spaces between the rows were so small, I couldn't use a ruler, so they may not be perfect, but that's okay. Then, to finish off this project, I took some Waverly chalk paint in the color Crimson and the end of a small paintbrush and gave Rudolph his red nose at the request of my son and husband. And that's it for this one. It's really simple, but I think it turned out really cute. On to DIY number 2. For this project, I used 2 of these wooden tree shapes from Dollar Tree, 2 of these square wood planks from Dollar Tree, 2 of these snowflakes from this mini ornament pack from Walmart, 2 of the square glass candle holders from Dollar Tree, some burlap ribbon from Dollar Tree, some buttons from Dollar Tree, Rust-Oleum stain in the color Kona, Waverly chalk paint in the color Snow White, some wood filler, and some wood glue. I started by removing the twine hangers from both of the trees. I then used the wood filler to fill the holes in the tops of both of the trees and set them aside to dry. Once the wood filler was dry, I took some sandpaper and sanded down the area where I had applied the wood filler so that it was nice and smooth. Next, I used a ruler and a sharp utility knife to remove the tree trunks from both trees. I used the straight edge of the ruler as a guide and used the utility knife to score along the bottom of the tree a handful of times so that I could easily snap off the trunk. After I had the trunks removed, I took some sandpaper and used it to smooth out the cut area. Then I used the Kona stain to stain the front and back of both of the trees and the 2 square wood planks. Once the stain was dry on the trees, I took some Waverly chalk paint in the color Snow White and, working in small sections, applied it to the tree, and then immediately, while the paint was still wet, took a scraper and scraped the paint back off the tree. I wiped the excess paint off of the scraper onto a paper towel before scraping the tree again. That way I would get the worn and distressed look I was going for. I continued to add more of the white paint and scraped it back off until I had the entire front of the tree painted and was happy with the way it looked. This has quickly become my favorite method to distress my projects. I then continued to repeat this process on the back of the tree and then to the front and back of the other tree and both of the square wood planks. Once the paint was completely dry, I took one of the square planks and applied a line of wood glue to one of the ends. I did leave a couple areas free of the wood glue so that I could add a couple dabs of hot glue, so that I would get a quick but permanent hold. After I had the glue on the end of the plank, I attached it to the bottom of the tree where I had removed the trunk. I quickly took a baby wipe and cleaned up any of the excess wood glue that squished out. I then repeated this step to add the other square plank to the other tree. Next, I used Waverly chalk paint in the color Snow White and applied a light coat just to the front of these two snowflakes. I used the burlap ribbon and wrapped it around the center of one of these glass candle holders and cut it to size. Then I used that piece to measure out and cut another piece of the ribbon the same size. I used a small line of hot glue to attach one end of the burlap ribbon strips to the center of the candle holder. Hot glue does not like glass, so I applied the hot glue directly on top of the burlap ribbon to attach the other end to help secure it in place around the candle holder. Next, I used hot glue to attach the snowflake in the center of the burlap ribbon right on the seam where the two pieces of ribbon come together. The snowflake will help hide the seam and will help secure the burlap to the glass. To finish off the candle holder, I took one of these small buttons and hot glued it to the center of the snowflake. I then repeated the same steps to put the burlap ribbon and snowflake on the other glass candle holder. Next, I took a simple shoestring bow that I made using some twine and hot glued it to the top of the tree over where the hole used to be. Then I took a larger button that matched the small button on the snowflake and hot glued it to the center of the bow and trimmed up the tails. I then repeated these steps on the other tree. To finish up this project, I set the glass candle holders down onto the wooden planks and then put in some white candles that I picked up at Dollar Tree, and these candle holders are done. I'm really happy with how these candle holders turned out. Again, these are very simple, but I think they are very rustic woodland, and that's the theme I'm going for this Christmas and winter seasons. Moving on to DIY number 3. For this next project, I used 5 of these small wood rounds from Walmart. I did end up having to pick up 2 packs since they only come 4 to a pack. You could use these poster stickers from Dollar Tree, but I decided to cut our initials out of matte black vinyl using my Cricut. I also used 15 of these large wooden beads from Amazon, some Rust-Oleum stain in the color Kona, some twine, and a drill. I started by picking out 5 of the wood rounds. Then I took my drill and drilled a hole in the top of each one. Once I had all the holes drilled, I took the vinyl initials and applied one to the front of each of the wood rounds. Like I mentioned earlier, you could use the poster letters from Dollar Tree, stickers, or even freehand the initials if you don't have a vinyl machine. Here are how all 5 wood rounds looked with the initials. Next, I used the Kona wood stain to stain 15 of the wooden beads. Once the beads were dry, I took some twine and put both ends through a large upholstery needle. I then fed the needle through the front of the hole on the wood round and then back through the loop on the twine to create a slip knot and secure the twine to the wood. Keeping both pieces of the twine through the upholstery needle, I strung 3 of the wooden beads down on top of the wood round. I removed the upholstery needle and decided how long I wanted the tags to hang and tied off the top in a knot and cut off the excess twine. I then repeated the same process to attach the twine and beads to the other 4 wood rounds, and these personalized stocking tags are finished. I absolutely love how these turned out, and they look really nice on the new stockings I picked up at Hobby Lobby. Let's go ahead and jump into DIY number 4. For this project, I used one of these large gift boxes and this set of 2 gift boxes from Dollar Tree, 2 packs of these microfiber spa towels from Dollar General, this rustic ribbon from Hobby Lobby, some burlap ribbon from Dollar Tree, Waverly chalk paint in the color Snow White, 2 of these rusty jingle bells from Hobby Lobby, 2 pine cones, a mini pine cone and berry pick from Hobby Lobby, a frosted floral pick from Hobby Lobby, and a berry and eucalyptus pick from Walmart. I started by using Waverly chalk paint in the color Snow White to paint all 3 gift boxes. This did take a few coats to fully cover the designs. Next, I took one of the microfiber towels and cut off all of the orange trimming. These towels have a fluffy side and a not so fluffy side, and I wanted the fluffy side to be on the outside of the gift boxes. I placed the towel down on the table with the fluffy side facing down. Then I placed the medium-sized gift box in the center upside down so that the top of the box was touching the towel. I then took a light silver marker from Dollar Tree and traced around the top of the box. Next, I tilted the box back towards me and traced that side. I returned the box back to the center position and then tilted it to the left side and traced that side onto the towel. Then I put the box back in the center and tilted it over to the right and traced that side. Finally, I returned the box back to the center position and tilted it forward and traced the final side of the box onto the towel. This created a cross shape on the towel so that when it's cut out, it will be one piece to cover the entire top of the gift box. I repeated this step using the smallest gift box to get the piece to cover it. Now for the large gift box, I had to use 2 of the towels and cut out one long piece to cover the top and 2 sides. Then I cut out 2 singular pieces for the other 2 sides. So to cover all of these gift boxes, I used a total of 4 microfiber towels. I started with the medium-sized gift box and made sure the fluffy side of the towel was facing outwards and used hot glue to attach the center square of the towel to the lid of the gift box. I then went around the edges of the lid with more hot glue to make sure the towel was securely in place. Once I had the top of the gift box covered, I started working on attaching the towel to the sides of the box. I started by gluing down the towel on the top and then put a line of glue down one side and pinched the 2 pieces of towel together where the 2 pieces meet so that none of the box was showing. Then I put a line of hot glue along the bottom side of the box and secured the towel in place. I continued to repeat this step until I had the microfiber towel securely attached to all 4 sides. Next, I flipped the box over and trimmed off any of the excess towel that was hanging over the bottom so that it would sit nice and flat. I then repeated these steps to attach the microfiber towels to the smaller and larger gift boxes. I used some Waverly chalk paint in the color Snow White and a coarse paintbrush to flock the tips of the pine cones to give them a snow-kissed look. I attached one end of the burlap ribbon to the bottom of the gift box using hot glue to secure it in place. I then wrapped the ribbon across the box and secured the other end to the bottom of the box using hot glue. Next, I placed the smaller ribbon from Hobby Lobby in the center of the burlap ribbon using hot glue to secure it in place. I then wrapped it around the box, making sure to keep it in the center of the burlap ribbon, and secured the other side to the bottom of the gift box with a dab of hot glue. To decorate the top of the box, I cut some pieces off the 2 picks that I showed earlier. I started with the larger pick pieces and placed them on top of the box in the center of the ribbon, going in opposite directions using hot glue to secure them in place. Next, I cut one of the leaves off this frosted berry pick and then used hot glue to secure the piece with the berries in the center of the greenery. I then attached the leaf that I cut off opposite the berries using hot glue. You'll see later I did add a few more smaller pieces of this greenery. I took the smallest of the 2 pine cones I painted earlier and hot glued it in the center of the box right above the greenery. Then to finish off this gift box, I took one of the rusty bells and hot glued it in the center of the box right under the pine cone between the 2 frosted pieces. I then repeated these steps using the same picks and ribbon to decorate the larger and smaller gift boxes. The only thing I did differently for either of the other boxes was I used the mini pine cone and berry picks instead of the bell and large pine cone on the small box. Y'all, these turned out so elegant. I really love these gift boxes and I can't wait to decorate with them. Okay, on to my favorite, DIY number 5. For this project, I used one of these 1.9 inch by 13.8 inch styrofoam wreath forms from Walmart, a set of old deer antlers my dad had laying around, but you could use 2 of these fake antlers from Walmart, one of these flocked greenery picks with blueberries from Hobby Lobby, one of these flocked greenery picks with the red berries from Hobby Lobby, one of the rusty jingle bells from Hobby Lobby, 1 package of microfiber spa towels from Dollar General, some twine, some jumbo wired burlap ribbon with gold edges from Dollar Tree, and some more of this rustic ribbon from Hobby Lobby. I started by cutting the orange trimmings off of both of the microfiber towels. Once I had the trimmings cut off the towels, I folded them in half long ways and cut them so that I would get 2 pieces out of each towel for a total of 4 pieces. I made sure the fluffiest side of the towel was facing the outside of the wreath and started covering the wreath form with the towels. I started at one end of the towel and used hot glue to attach it to the back side of the wreath form. I then continued to apply hot glue to the wreath and place the towel on top, making sure to pull it tight so that the front of the wreath was wrinkle-free and so that all the seams were on the back side of the wreath. I found it easiest to adhere the top portion of the towel to the back of the wreath first, then go back and pull the bottom of the towel tight and glue it down. This helped to remove all the wrinkles on the front side of the wreath. I continued to adhere the microfiber towel all the way around the wreath until it was completely covered. I used a total of 3 half pieces of the towel and just a little bit of the 4th piece. Once I had the wreath form completely covered, I placed the antlers on the bottom half of the wreath and used a generous amount of hot glue to attach them to the wreath form. I painted 2 of the large zip ties from Dollar Tree with Waverly chalk paint in the color Snow White and used one on each of the antler bases to secure them a little more. I made sure the locks of the zip ties were on the back side of the wreath and pulled them nice and snug and cut off the excess zip ties. Next, I cut apart both of the picks and started filling in bare areas around the antlers. I started with the biggest pine piece and used hot glue to secure it in place close to the top of the antler, and then continued to place the other pieces around the antlers until I was happy with the way it looked. I did make sure to mimic whatever I did to one side of the wreath on the other side to help balance out the look. I also included some of the leftover pieces from the picks that I used in the earlier projects to help fill in the more sparse areas and to add a little more shine. A little tip I use when putting florals on wreaths is to lay out the pieces before I start gluing them into place so that I have a good idea of how I want the finished wreath to look. Here is how the wreath looked once I finished putting all the florals in place. I made this bow using the 2 ribbons off camera and hot glued it to the center of the bottom of the wreath between the 2 antlers. I'm still learning how to make bows, and to be completely honest, I still struggle, so I had to follow a tutorial, and I will leave a link to the one I used in the description box below. I did not want any of the zip ties showing, so I went back and added another piece of greenery to the center of the wreath behind the bow to cover it up. To cover up the gap between the antlers, I took a pine cone and hot glued it over the gap. Next, I took one of the rusty jingle bells and hot glued it to the center of the bow. Then, to finish up this wreath, I took another piece of the burlap and gold ribbon and looped it through the top of the wreath and hot glued the 2 ends together to create a hanger. I made sure the seam of the hanger was on the back side of the wreath and hot glued it to the back of the wreath to secure it, and this one is finished. I absolutely love this wreath. I think out of all the wreaths I have ever made or bought, this one is my favorite. The camera really does not do this wreath the justice it deserves. And last but not least, DIY number 6. For this project, I used 2 of these wooden incense ash catchers from Walmart, 2 of these 1.25-inch wooden wheels from Hobby Lobby, 2 of the jumbo skewer sticks from Dollar Tree, some twine, Waverly chalk paint in the color Snow White, Waverly chalk paint in the color Ink, a white glitter pick from Hobby Lobby, a frosted berry pick from Hobby Lobby, a berry and eucalyptus pick from Walmart, some wood filler, and some sandpaper. I started by using the wood filler to fill the hole where the incense stick goes on both of the ash catchers and set them aside to fully dry. Once the wood filler was completely dry, I took some sandpaper and sanded down the area where I had applied the wood filler so that it would be nice and smooth. Next, I used Waverly chalk paint in the color Snow White to paint the front, back, and sides of both of the ash catchers. This did take about 4 coats to fully cover the blue-green color. Once the paint was dry, I took Waverly chalk paint in the color truffle and a coarse paintbrush and distressed the front, back, and sides of both of the ash catchers. I used the dry brush method for this distressing. If I happened to get too much paint in any one area, I would dampen my finger and rub the excess paint off the ash catcher, which would also smear some of the paint to give it a more worn and weathered look. This is how both of the ash catchers looked once I had them distressed. Next, I took one of the large skewer sticks and cut the end with the point down to roughly 12 inches using miter shears. However, you will see in the end, I went ahead and cut them down to roughly 9 to 10 inches. Once I had the skewer piece cut, I took some sandpaper and smoothed out the cut end. I then used this skewer piece to measure and cut the other skewer stick to size, again keeping the pointed end of the stick. Next, I used some masking tape and taped off maybe an inch on the flat end of the skewer stick and painted them with Waverly chalk paint in the color ink. Once the paint was dry, I taped off the black ends with masking tape and painted the rest of the skewer sticks with Waverly chalk paint in the color Snow White. Then, once the paint was dry, I put a small dab of hot glue just a little bit up from the bottom of the black area, which is going to be the handles, and started wrapping the twine up towards the top roughly 6 times and added another dab of hot glue to secure it in place, leaving just a little bit of the black part of the handle showing. I then repeated this step to add twine to the top of the other skewer stick. This step is just a matter of preference, but I like to take a lighter and very carefully burn off what I call the twine fuzzies so that I have a nice, clean, finished look. Doing this also gives the twine a rustic, worn look that I love as well. Next, I took Waverly chalk paint in the color truffle and a coarse paintbrush and distressed the white part of the sticks just like I did the ash catchers. I used Waverly chalk paint in the color ink to paint the front and back of both of the little wheels. I did have to drill out the holes in the wheels a bit so that they would fit over the ends of the skewer sticks. Here you can see the wheels have a grooved side and a flat side. I wanted the flat side to be facing the bottom of the stick towards the point. I put a very thin layer of hot glue around the skewer stick, just a little bit above the point on the end, and placed the wheel on top of the glue to secure it in place. To clean up any rogue hot glue, I used a heat tool to heat up the dried glue and used a Cricut pick to scrape it away. I then repeated these steps to add the other wheel to the other skewer stick. To put the skis together, I made an X shape with the 2 ash carriers and added a generous amount of hot glue between them where they came in contact with one another. I also used a ruler to help keep them level during this step. Once I had the 2 pieces glued together, I stood them up flat on the table and placed the first ski pole so that it would be flush with the bottom of the skis and used hot glue to attach it to the center of the skis at a slight angle. Next, I took the other ski pole and again with the skis standing, I placed it across the first pole to form an X shape and used hot glue to secure it in place. Again, you will see at the end that I did not like the ski poles being so long, so I did go back and cut them down, repaint, and wrap the handles. I cut the floral picks apart and starting with the largest piece, I placed it on the left side right under the top ski pole and used hot glue to secure it in place. Then I took the other large piece and hot glued it to the center of the skis going in the opposite direction. Next, I cut the frosted berry pick apart and hot glued the individual frosted leaves around the center of the skis and around the poles to create a little nest for the berries. I took the 3 red berries and hot glued them down in the center of the frosted leaves. I then took 2 of the white berry picks and placed one on either side of the poles. To finish off this piece, I took 2 small pine cones and a white seed pod from a pack of decorative filler from Dollar Tree and used hot glue to attach the seed pod to the center of the skis right above the red berries, and then I hot glued the pine cones right under the seed pod. Here you can see that I went back and cut the ski poles down so that they were a bit more proportionate to the skis. I absolutely love how these turned out. They would look gorgeous on a tiered tray, entryway table, or up on a shelf. I think I'll make a larger pair in the future. Here is one final look at all 6 of today's woodland themed Christmas decor projects. I absolutely love how all these turned out. Which one of these projects is your favorite? Let me know in the comments below. It was a really hard choice to make, but I think my favorite is the faux fur antler wreath. I want to thank each and every one of you for stopping by, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really does help me out here on YouTube, and if you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, what are you waiting for? Click that button and stick around for a little while. I have tons of fun projects on the way. I'll see y'all next time.